What kind of challenge are you expecting this weekend?
Yeah, pretty significant one. Obviously, going to this sort of place, I think, is probably a true reflection of where we are. You know, we've spoken about this being perhaps the start of our season in many ways. You could say the fixture list has been pretty kind to us on the one hand, but we've done a decent job to push ourselves to the position we're in. But we're fully respectful of the challenge Munster will pose. You know, we've had a couple of tricky encounters there the last couple of years, a couple of poor displays from us in close encounters. So we expect Munster, you know, they're evolving pretty nicely now, I think, with Foley there, and developing probably a more of an efficient machine that suits what they've got there, really. So for us, it's a real physical challenge, whilst obviously knowing there's a lot of threats across the park with them.
Gruff, are you expecting it to be a step up on what you sort of done so far?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, based on what I've said there, that with respect to the opposition we've had, even though we've been pretty pleased with how efficient we were for the majority of those games, we're playing a top 6 side. You know, potential top 4, potential winners of the competition, and we go there under no illusions. Despite the fact they've had a couple of trip-ups at home recently in the back end of last year, you know, I still think there's some real good power around their side, and they're probably going to use it in more of a wiser, sharper fashion than perhaps they've done over the last year or so.
What is the formula of getting a result out of it?
We've had two games out there the last 2 seasons where we haven't played particularly well, but they've been real tough, niggly, tactical challenges. We drew there 2 years ago and a losing bonus point last year. So the formula is the way you've got to not express yourself unduly. If there's opportunities, you've certainly got to take them against these, but know that you've got to try and match them physically, but also control where you play the game. And you've got to be smart in terms of what you do, not give them any ins in terms of bringing field position back into our area, and knowing how efficient they are in the 22 at converting pressure to points. So you've got to take that totally away from them and put things more on the front foot, which we're certainly capable of doing, as we've seen through some of our games so far.
Are they the force that they were?
I think they can be. I think they're perhaps evolving back towards that. They've obviously tweaked and changed the way they've looked at things over the last couple of years with a different coaching philosophy. And there was moments, in terms of when they got it right, it was really good. And I think there's credit to them. They maintained their success in Europe. The consistency there is unrivaled really over the European competition. But I think what they're perhaps going back to now suits the traditional Munster power base and suits the players they've got there. But we're also mindful that they've still got some huge threats in that team. Andrew Smith's been a pretty smart acquisition for them at 13. Zebo there, Conor Murray back in flow. It's the top end side we're playing.
Is it a sort of a mental challenge as well as a physical challenge going up there?
No, not really. I think for us, we're pretty confident in the fact that we go to places and we don't really think externally about things. We just focus on what we want to do and try and be efficient at those. We've obviously spoke about the technical and tactical things you've got to get spot on against this opposition, or you can be hurt badly. But we have also spoke about the fact, I think this group, we do need to win some significant games away from home. We haven't done that for a while, derby days aside, and for us to be credible contenders, and we know we're going to have ups and downs for the season, we've got to show that we can get results.
How would you assess Rees' work start the season? That try last week against Edinburgh?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. He's come off the back of another bad injury again, but he comes back, bigger, stronger, faster than before, and that's credit to his, aptitude for training, his thirst for knowledge about getting better, and the momentum he's got for having a proper summer's work with us, and we're seeing that with a few of the players actually. But for him as well, he does his work behind the scenes, and he's been pretty smart. He hasn't just been run. He's mixed up his game beautifully. The Dragons, for example, they obviously spoke about him in the week, but he bided this time till the 55th, 60th minute, and then has a go at the player. He's kicking really well for us at the moment, which is an important feature. And defensively, he's starting to build a good relationship around what he's saying to the forwards and how he's linking with the back three as well. So obviously the tries will get the attention, but it's the substance around his game I'm really liking at the moment as well.
Good test against Conor Murray for him as well, if that transpires.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, we're obviously big fans of Conor Murray. He also is a real key kicking threat for them, but a big physical threat around the fringes, and especially when you've got, you know, players like Zebo and some of their tough ball carriers, you know, it does ask a lot of questions. But it's one Rees will really enjoy, actually, just the ability to snap at each other's heels, and you know, he'll like playing in that sort of intensity.
And Rees broke into the Wales team in the Six Nations. Do you think he can do that again in the autumn, given the form that he's in now?
Yeah, without question. You know, I think it showed the last year he started games for Wales in the Six Nations, and you know, deservedly so, in amongst some credible challengers now as well. I think it's, you know, really becoming that where it might have been sparse behind Mike for a number of years. You know, these guys are really pushing through, and I think Rees is certainly at the front of the queue.
Dan outside, he's been playing really well too, Griff, isn't he? Dan Bigger.
Yeah, he's the model of consistency, and he's talk about tactically, he knows what we want. He's on page with how and where we want to try and control the game and allow him within that then to express himself. We are trying to open our game up a little bit more as well, and he's getting excited by that as well. He's a threat with the ball in hand, but you know, we're starting to develop options with your people like your Hasslers, your Matavezes, your Tipricks. You know, there's a whole host of them now across the park, which is giving them a bit more free rein as well to actually use these guys in different ways. So, you know, he's been number one for us for a long time, and you know, that consistency of performance has been there for such a long time, and you know, that'll continue. You know, obviously, you know, the amount of minutes he has with us.
Do you think he's a little bit underappreciated outside of the Ospreys, Griff? Because if you look at the way he played for Wales and the Six Nations out in South Africa, you should be nailed on as the number one, really. But you know, Granstrom coming in, guys like that. Do you think maybe some people just not aware of just how good he is?
I'm not so sure. I think Priestland, to be fair, I think has done really well in the Welsh shirts previously, and they've had a good little rivalry going the last couple of years, and that'll just keep pushing Dan on to be bigger and better. You know, but he knows this about what he does in the Osprey shirt, and he thrives on being the model pro week in, week out, and that's what, you know, I think has made him Wales number one now. And again, he just won't take that for granted. He'll just continue to be. He's going to be the best he can be for the next 10 years or so, and that's pretty scary too.
How are you going to tell Dan Bigger that he's not playing every match for the Ospreys? Because you said when he comes back, he always wants to get back a week early. How difficult is that going to be? You're going to have to try and bring him in to play. Because if you're going to start, he plays on average, you know, 8 more games than the ones that he wants to play. How difficult as a coach is that going to be in the future?
Yeah, it is difficult, and I think we've got to appreciate with Dan the amount of games he's got and the consistency he's had with that over the 2 years is one of the reasons why I think he's been able to establish himself as Wales' number one. He loves time in the middle, you know, and he thrives on that. So that would be a, you know, tricky question, and we'll just do what we always do. We're mindful of what's best for every elite athlete. Some people may need 16 as the magic number per se, but you know, for other players, they do need to be treated differently across the calendar and across the different competitions. So we would be pretty consistent in our approach to how we've dealt with players thus far, really, and I think it's then down to perhaps the negotiations themselves, and sometimes things may get taken out of coaches' hands also.
How do you keep Sam Davis happy?
A tricky one, because we've seen, you know, talented 10s in the past who've needed game time, and they haven't had that, as I said, because we've had the benefits, as Daniel has been number one, and we've had the response from that. You know, but he did magnificent for us last year with a lot of game time at full-back. He is going to get time in the middle across the different competitions that we play in. He's involved in every match day 23 and shares the training load with Daniel, which is really important to us now, and things we haven't perhaps done in the past. But also, we've got to get to that point where we maybe trust Sam in relation to the previous conversation as well, and say, it's your time in the middle and off you go. Because, you know, quite honestly, we really do believe in Sam, you know, and I'd have no qualms with him playing against Munster away also.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with making a point about Rees and Dan as a sort of half-back combination, do you think that whilst selectors would look at that favourably and maybe look to replicate that sort of partnership for Wales?
Yeah, can do. I think, you know, coaches differ, but we've been pretty consistent on the spine of our side in our selection so far. You know, not just the half-backs, but 2, 8 and 15 as well, and that's, you know, something that's been important to us early season. And I think you do get reward from that. There's a bit of fluidity and momentum, but especially around the half-backs, understanding, you know, the key messages, but also where we want to attack with the vigour we've got as well.
Would you like to see those two combined for Wales, possibly, Rees and Dan?
Yeah, obviously I'm slightly biased because I work with these guys. I know the talent they've got and how well they do combine together. But it's also about us pushing them to be better. And it's not just Sam Davis, it's about Tom Haberfield and Martin Roberts as well in our environment. So we've just got to be mindful of managing all players, but you do get rewards from consistency as well.
Eli back this weekend, the selection, anybody else out or?
No, all as we were really. Yeah, Eli is available, so he's training up there today. And again, we've just got some good resources at the moment, but you know, we're staying pretty consistent in our selections, and the bench is making a good impact at the moment for us as well, which is really important because going through the calendar as it is has different challenges where we do lose potentially a lot of boys to internationals. So we are going to have to back these boys to come through and do a job for us soon. But certainly out wide, we've got some real good headaches at the moment.
Gruff, with Paul O'Connell, he's getting on. Is he still a gold standard for European second rows?
With Alan Wynne-Jones, yeah.
That's going to be a great contest if they both play.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, you know, two titans of the game, and you know, I've sat in here many times and spoke about consistency in performances. You talk about your Dan Bigger, but Alan Wynne is, you know, week in, week out, you know, at such a high level. Come back in against the Dragons, cold as well as a late call up, and you just get, you know, real intensity, real physicality, but a smartness to what he's doing now. He's leading young men around him in a real mature way. Obviously leading away from the front, but understanding, you know, where and how he can work with the halfbacks to make the team better. And that's probably been a trademark of O'Connell down the years, where he galvanises Munster, but then trusts his 9 and 10 down the years to actually put them in positions that win games.
How do you tell Alan when you get a person like anybody else? You leave that to Sandy.
Yeah, that'll be a forwards conversation.
With Coach Gruff, there's no guarantee these guys will sign dual contracts, is there?
No, again, it's just, I suppose we don't want to get into another cycle of negotiations, but they are going to happen, and so my fear is it may affect a lot of this season as we go through the international window, where things will get held up into the Christmas, to the derbies. Yeah, so it's potentially, even though there's peace in our time, there's still a lot of things that have to come through really for us from a rugby point of view to get a bit of smoothness to what we want to do in the future.
Rather than that number of 16 games, would you prefer to see them done on a case-by-case basis? Every player is different, so some would benefit from playing more than 16 times, or there's some rest.
Yeah, I think put the player at the heart of the discussions, which is what we've always been about, you know. But in and around that, just having good partnerships with the governing body about those individual players. As I said, because I think it's really important around the competitions within, that we can't dilute the competition by taking players out on a regular basis. I think that's hugely important, especially with the jeopardy that's in play about trying to get into European spots. So we're respectful and mindful of that, as well as the individual. So yeah, those conversations have got to be, you know, worked together through, which they are taking place at the moment with Steve and Warren and so forth.
So have we told that there's room for manoeuvre maybe on that issue, that from the 16 games it depends on
I haven't, no. I know Steve will go into those sort of discussions, and I think it's probably a starting point, but me personally, no.
Dan Baker, so you know, just the way you started the season and finished last, how important is it to have that ball carrying presence in your back?
Yeah, I love it from an attacking point of view. I mentioned our threats before, and I'm obviously biased around backline players and maybe tips as well, but Baker's another one, you know, where teams are going to start homing in on him, and then that can create opportunities for others as well. As I said, we've got a whole host of threats there. But also, as we're doing with all the players, you just keep their feet on the ground. There's still huge growth in some of these to go. And they're humble guys. I think they appreciate that. They've come through the system. They know the values we hold in terms of the coaching team and how we demand standards and improvement. And, you know, around Dan's game, you know, there's certainly things defensively we want to keep pushing on. You know, so him not just in isolation, that's just a theme for us, that we can never be satisfied, and we won't be.
How tight is selection between Dan and Morgan Allen?
Yeah, it's getting a good debate. You know, Dan has started it really well, with certain things going well for him, but Morgan has been the ultimate impact sub for us, and he's been fantastic the last quarter of games with his ball carrying ability, and defensively he's becoming a real nuisance for the opposition in and around the tackle contest. Yeah, so that's credit to him, and you know, at some point you can't keep punishing him for being an impact sub. He's going to deserve starts, but as I said, it's just having headaches in the right positions now, which hasn't always been the case the last couple of years or so, despite our perceived strength.